Hello world. Today I'm going to try and fix my brain. Okay, so one of the things I've been struggling with um, is it's a term they call chemo brain. It's to be honest, it's when after chemotherapy or radiation therapy as well, you tend to, as a cancer patient, sometimes have a few problems, and I've got a list of some of them which I've been struggling with, which does affect your mind. And I've usually always been someone I'm pretty proud of my mind. I really do see that God has blessed me in that area. So it's usually been something I've been proud of. I've always tried to keep it healthy, strong, also exercise my mind. I love doing puzzles because, it teaches you to think logically and to do that sort of thing. But I've noticed since I've been sick and been going through a few chemos and things, and especially recently after the radiation therapy, I have noticed a few problems, and I've decided I've got to try and fix it. And that I'm going to do with the 21-day brain detox, which I'll explain in a moment. But just to give you an idea of what's going on with me, the effects of chemo on the brain, there is this being unusually disorganized. I've always been someone who's been very organized, especially my thinking, to the point that I never used a planner, for instance. I knew all my appointments, I knew where I had to be when and exactly how long it would take me. And these days I can't remember what I'm supposed to be doing. I will literally be walking around the house thinking, I had to phone someone. I had to phone someone. Who did I have to phone? And it's really weird. And so now I've really got to write down everything. I've got to make to-do lists. I've got to keep a strict planning of, like when am I supposed to be in the hospital? What appointments do I have? And for me, it's a weird situation. I've learned to adjust to do it, but I'd like to get back that ability to be organized again. Another problem is confusion, just general confusion, like what's going on? People say things and I'll be like, no idea what's going on. I do struggle concentrating. I've actually been trying to start this Bible study. Plan was to start in January actually, and actually to present it also on this channel, but I've been struggling to get going with it, and that's got a lot to do with the fact I just can't concentrate. I'll read a couple of verses and I'm sort of like drifting off and gone, a short attention span. I can't do things for a long time. Reading long passages is difficult. And these are things that were never a problem before. I could double down, focus, go work on things, do things, get things done, and it really bothers me now that I'm struggling in this way. Another one is short-term memory problems. I'll seriously never had this before, but now I'll go down the stairs and I'll forget why I went downstairs. Or go into the kitchen, I'm like, what was I doing here? These are things that are really bothering me, and I want to fix that. Now, as I mentioned before, the causes of this chemotherapy, they don't quite understand how or what, but chemotherapy seems to have this effect. It's why they call it chemo brain. Radiation therapy as well. I did have full body radiation, so it does also hit the mind. It can also happen when you have certain targeted drugs. I've been on 3 different inhibitors now for the protein marker in the in the leukemia. So and they do sometimes have an effect on your mind, fatigue, tiredness, that sort of thing. So I've had a few things, that can play a role, and maybe it's also because I've just been tired in general, that I just haven't been training my mind as I should have, and keeping it alert. So now, what's the solution? Well, the idea is I'm going to do a 21-day brain detox. Now, why and where do I get this from? Now, a couple of years ago, I read a book called Switch on Your Brain by Dr. Caroline Leaf, and I found it a very interesting book. I never did anything with the book because, to give you an idea, the book's written in 2 parts. The first part is pretty scientific and goes into your brain. The second part was this detox plan, and I never really read that because The things that she described were things I did in my daily life already. So the first part I read because I found it very interesting. Now, who's Dr. Caroline Leaf? She works in cognitive neuroscience and has done a lot of research into neuroplasticity. In case you're wondering, I'm reading that off a paper because they're big, biggish words. But what it means is neuroplasticity is the ability for the brain to change, either say in development stages, but also you can change your brain by the decisions you make. And she explains this in the book how it works and what's going on and everything in great detail. But the idea is because of this, she developed this method where in 21 days you can retrain the neural pathways in your brain so that you can react differently to things. Because you see, we can not always control our circumstances, but we can control how we react to them, and that you can train. And then your brain will, as it were, change and develop and become, will take on those changes and will change it. You can become, maybe you always think negatively, you can work on this to think positively. Maybe you worry a lot about things, you can use this to train to worry less. And the interesting thing is, this method she uses has actually helped people with brain damage, people who have had severe strokes, that have even actually been classed as, well, they'll be stuck in a wheelchair the rest of their life, pretty much a vegetable. And this method has actually helped those type of people to recover and to get further. It's helped people with dementia and Alzheimer's. So it's been a very effective method. And of course, healthy people can do this as well. And so what has been decided is, I've decided that as of the 1st of February, I'm going to take 21 days. That right now I've got to do this till the 21st of February to go through the process of the brain detox. And Tessa is doing this with me, my wife. We're going to do this together. And the idea is I'm going to try and see if this will help me win back some of what I've lost during the last few years of sickness. And she's going to, she just wants to develop. If you don't know, she's started her own channel from Jane, where she does Motivational Mondays, where she talks about self-improvement. And to her, it's a big thing, so that's why she does it. And we're going to do this together, that way we motivate each other. Now, what is the 21-day brain detox? Basically, there are 5 steps you do. It'll take you about 7 to 10 minutes in the day just to do this. And what you do, step 1 is called gather. You sit and you take note of all the thoughts that come in your mind. Things like, oh, I'm worrying about this, or this thought comes in, or you think negatively about something, or you'll notice after a while that there's maybe a pattern that you're always worried about your finances, or you're always thinking negatively about a person, or there's something that's not right in your thought. And what you can do is, by gathering this information, you sort of get everything together. Step 2 is then what's called focused reflection. That is where you look at the thoughts that you've gotten in, and you take those that you want to change, and you start going over, well, how can I think differently about it? Like say, you have someone that you think negatively about often. You take that moment to think, yes, but what are their positive qualities? What are the things that they do right? Is it a colleague at work that irritates you? What do they do right at work? Why do they have the job or the position? And you think of those things. The third step is then where you're going to write this down. And the idea of that is your mind, as it were, writes down these patterns and things that it thinks. So by writing it down, you're mimicking what's going on in your mind. It's almost like you put your brain on paper. Step 4 is then called revisit, and that's where you read what you've written and you look at it again, and you start, as it were, breaking down the negative thoughts and start focusing on the positive ones. And then the 5th step is what's called active reach, and that's where you start doing the things that actually come out of it. For instance, using that example of someone who really bothers you, irritates you, that you think negatively about, in the active reach, you will actually go out and try and give them a compliment when you see them, or make the active step of thinking positive things about them, maybe going and praying about them, looking for biblical scriptures about loving your neighbor or loving your enemy, and that sort of thing. And in that way, by doing this every day for 21 days, what you do is you reprogram the neural pathways in your mind to think differently. And I'm going to do this during February, see how it goes. If I have good effects on it, I might do it in March again, 1st till 21st, and maybe April, and do it as long as it benefits me. And the idea is, I'm hoping that I can regain what I've lost cognitively, because I do notice a decrease, and it does bother me, and I'd like to get that back. and we're going to see how this works. And what I'm going to do is, this is part 1. I will make a part 2 on this after the 21st of February, where I will tell you about what's happened, the effect, how it went, what I thought of it, and I'll give you my opinion on this. But for now, what I can say is Switch on Your Brain by Dr. Caroline Leaf. It's a book I'd recommend. Do read it. If the first bit is too sciencey for you, that doesn't matter. Read the second bit where they talk about the actual practical side of it. If you like the sciencey bit, which is what I like and enjoy, read the first bit. Enjoy it. I think it's a good book. I think it's important for us to train our minds and to actively be busy with making sure that we've got those things sorted out. So like I say, it's I don't usually recommend books and things that quickly, but this is one that I do. So go for it. Try the Detox as well. Like I said, I'll let you know how it went for me, and hopefully by the end of the month I can give you a video with some positive progress, but we'll see how it goes. Anyway, thank you for watching, and keep well, and God bless.